Right, welcome back to Kivumbi 2022. The registrar of the political parties and Njeri Nderitu is right here, Lutalala Muhwana. I hope I got it right. He's also sitting with us on the table, and my colleague Sophia Wanuna will be asking the most relevant questions for you tonight. And Sophia, perhaps you need to begin this discussion having heard from Martha Karua.
She was talking about is that in terms of ideology, that's lacking in our country. But I wonder, legally speaking, in terms of the laws and the body that governs political parties and thereafter coalitions, registrar, what would you say can be done to cure the indiscipline we see? Because all the reports that are washed, especially recently, have been about you gave word, you signed a deal, there's an agreement which you have not honored. Here we are in that season again where we are seeing a lot of that alignments. So from where you sit, is there a way to instill discipline in how coalitions are formed in this country and enforce it?
First of all is to understand what the law provides as far as the formation of coalition.
Yes.
A coalition can be a pre-election coalition or a post-election coalition. The pre-election coalition, like the one we are discussing as a country currently, are supposed to be done 3 months before the general election, at least to be filed with the register of political parties 3 months before the general election. When we did, the last time the coalitions were brought to the Office of Register of Political Parties, or the agreement were made, the regulations 2019 were not there. Now to answer your question, the question of monitoring and checking through what the coalition agreement provides then was not in the purview of the Register of Political Parties, but currently regulations 2019 provides that once documents are filed with the Register of Political Parties, then scrutiny of the document and the provisions of what is there, then registrar should certify himself or herself on the content of the coalition agreement. That was not there in the previous election.
Yes.
That in itself then give registrar some leeway latitude to be able to check what is filed. That is not to say that the current coalitions have any issue, because any coalition, the schedule of how a coalition is formed is provided under Schedule 3 of the Political Parties Act. So, and the parties follows that particular provisions of the Act to ensure that the provisions provided in the schedule are captured in the coalition agreement. One issue that probably we need to put into perspective is the question of the provisions of that schedule on issues of conflict and arbitration, which the parties involved in a coalition should then invoke, should there be a disagreement. Because we don't look at a perfect situation where everything goes according to plan, then it will not be politics in the first place. So that's why the schedule provides, should there rise a particular issue along the way in the course of implementation of the coalition agreement, then you invoke sections of the coalition agreement that provides for dispute resolution, arbitration and mediation and all that, so that you move together in the coalition.
All right.
Yes.
Are you convinced that's the silver bullet in finding and bringing that tidiness and discipline in mergers going forward?
Yeah, thanks, Sophia and Ken, for having me. Nice to meet you, Anne.
Yeah.
It has been a while. I think she has done a good job in tunneling the discussion back to what a coalition is and what are the underpinning requirements in terms of conflict resolution, because that is where your question is faced. When there is a conflict, what happens? And you seem to be fed up with the ongoings to the extent that there is too much quarreling about you didn't do this, you did this. I think your question whether that is sufficient, it's important that we go back to a bit of the history that undergirds coalition formation. The term coalition actually has its ancestry in Latin, coalitio, which means coming together to help each other grow. Okay? Now, I'm defining that for a specific reason, because that will help Anne when it comes to the next phase of this discussion. When a coalition is formed, therefore, there is the understanding that this is a relationship that has a goal, which goal is for the mutual benefit of all the parties.
Correct.
And therefore, each party that is in the coalition will grow as it helps the other party to grow. In brief, it means that you have inadequacies and adequacies that can cover for each other, and therefore you become a big force to attain the goal. And many times, as Anne has said, it is to attain position of governance.
Okay.
The problem we have is that the law alone, the formal institution alone, cannot be the silver bullet.
Okay.
There is what we call the informal institutions, which actually are so strong, and they can either complement the formal institution, which is what Anne is in charge of, or actually contradict and bring that formal institution to detriment. I'll give you a very good example. The handshake between His Excellency Honorable Raila Odinga and the President is a perfect example of an informal arrangement.
Okay.
To the extent that it was a personal understanding between the two gentlemen, look, we need to bring this country together, we need to come and shake hands. That was an informal arrangement. But see how it has gone ahead to shape a whole conversation in the country, leading to the BBI, which, as we speak, has the potential of changing the entire constitutional structure of this country if the judges approve of that next on Friday. So in my view, the problem are the informal institutions, which rather than complement the formal institutions, they conflict the formal institutions, and so bring what I call political corruption.
Okay. We'll come to that. I have a follow-up question for you, Registrar. I think the question is more about the enforcement. If your office has the capacity to enforce, where does it go from that point that there's a dispute? Do you have the capacity to ensure that pre-election pacts, post-election pacts that have been filed by you are actually performed to the latter? Do you have what it takes to do that as the office of the registrar? Because we've seen politicians undermine your office left, right, and center.
The first understanding is that you can enforce what the law provides. As far as the provision of enforcement of coalition, I don't think there's anywhere the law provides that we enforce a coalition. We actually regulate activities and operations of political parties, not coalitions. And I think looking at all over the world, I think a coalition is supposed to be an agreement between like-minded partners who have agreed how they'll move together, so that they're able to self-regulate themselves, because it's political and it's politics. So that if they want to change anything, they file again and they say, we have decided this is the way we want to go. I do not see why a coalition should be enforced outside the coalition members themselves. For the reason...
because she is a custodian. So my point is, as a custodian, if we're supposed to enforce it using the constitution, individual constitutions for those coalitions, what if they refuse? Why are you the custodian? Why do they have to bring it to you? Because my assumption is they give it to you.
The law says that they deposit. They deposit with us. So that should any person want to doubt what was contained in the coalition agreement, you can come and check. Any Kenyan can know what was contained in the coalition. And I want you to check across the world, and you see probably we are ahead as a country that we have a depository of coalitions. In other jurisdictions, they actually agreement between parties and they move along with them.
Is there arbitration there then, still taking that point further? Because so depositing is they just come and bring it. But what we're driving at is when now kimeumana, for lack of a better word, who then arbitrates? When those people, yes, they submitted and deposited the document, but they now don't agree. They don't see eye to eye. Do you have power with these regulations you speak of to come and say from the foregoing, this being status, this is the direction that you must take? Can you?
The first thing is that once they deposit, they must follow Schedule 3, the one we mentioned. And that schedule provide the mechanism by which the dispute should be should be sorted out. If they have not given the registrar any power, then you cannot come in unless you are given power by the coalition agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think the coalition partners can reach a place where there are no mechanism. If you look, for example, the existing coalitions, even in history, you are going to realize they start with themselves, then they move to inviting arbitrators, then they move to inviting mediators, then they move to court. There are different processes. Yeah. So it's not only the office of registrar that is supposed to arbitrate. Okay. Actually, we do not have, according to the Act, we do not have arbitration powers, even for coalition.
Thank you. If you allow me to just add, the essence of a coalition should be viewed almost similarly to a contractual relationship.
Yes.
It's consensual. And where parties have agreed to abide by certain self-regulating mechanisms, the law says, for instance, that the court or the mediator or the arbitrator cannot make the contract for you. So the presumption is, which is a legitimate presumption, that where we have a coalition partners and there's a disagreement, they must move to the next step of dispute resolution, which they put forward themselves. Yeah. Now, where you find that they're not even attempting that, then it simply means that there is such a huge level of mistrust that nothing will work. And many times in this country, that's what you see. And the reason why most parties reach that level is what I've talked about, political corruption. Okay. Where one partner simply decides to go rogue and says, Mtadu, and therefore there emerges a stalemate. Then they start ping-pong. They write several letters to the office of the registrar. And
you register this person.
Yes. Do that. The public then is led to perceive that it is her office which is not doing the work of regulation. That is not the correct position. The correct position is that the coalition partners ought to go by their arbitral regulations or the dispute resolution mechanisms, which are always seated in the coalition agreement. Okay. So those fellows who are not agreeing, the first question you ask them as journalists is, or go to their documents and find out what does the coalition agreement say. Yeah. And it's from there that then you get the next lead. Okay. Not so much.
The other, perhaps the other concern, Registrar, is the SPVs. Does it concern your office that every election, we are heading to another election in 1 year or less? Does it concern your office that these are just SPVs? It's confusing to Kenyans. Is there something that can be done, or it's not your work, it's not your business? The special purpose vehicles. Yes, that's what happens. We had COD, we had NASA. Right now they'll come with another one. OCA is grouping. Does it concern your office, or this is totally out of your ambit?
I think I want to state very clearly that our coalitions are never meant to be permanent in the first place. Okay. They are actually supposed to be that, to serve an election cycle. Reason being, political interests keep shifting. Correct. Politicians change. Okay. Yeah, and the people who agreed in 2017 are probably different. The political scenarios have unfolded differently. So every other time, after every election or before another election, all over the world, coalition keeps shifting. So we cannot have a coalition that has taken 3 cycles. Then there's a problem.
By law or by it just
by
happened?
Practice or
by practice. So
by practice or politics.
Perhaps political parties are the ones which are problematic, that they also keep changing.
Yeah. But even political parties, probably the ones who came together last election will be different or add more to the next. They may be the same parties and probably add more. The people have changed, the interests have changed, the political scenario have unfolded differently in this electoral cycle as compared to the last. So this notion that there should be a smart way where that coalitions that were there in 2017, 2013 transit to the next level. Indeed, if a coalition finished 5 years, it has served its full time. Yeah,
so it's not in law, it's just in practice.
Yeah, it's practice.
It's just practice, political practice.
Yeah, political practice.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's spent. It's spent. It's whatever is spent, because the law will change, other issues will come up, and
interest will
change.
And that's why we say the same monkeys, different forests, or the same castes, different scripts. You know.
Yes.
If you allow me to just add on what Madam has said, if you look at the example of the Indian BJP, Banatra Janata Party, BJP, one of the longest ruling parties in India, of course with some shift. In 1998, they entered a coalition agreement with a number of political parties. The BJP has lived through, of course, with changing faces. Now, the reason why it has lived through with the changing faces is because at every end of the cycle, they have agreed on what next goal they have to achieve. Yeah. And that's what she's saying.
Okay.
So there is a goalpost. And once you reach that goalpost, there is no really reason why you should be going beyond, because the goal has already been achieved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a question that came through here, Registrar. I remember the last I think we spoke was about what had broken the story about people being registered. And Andrew Mutei had tweeted saying, I still don't understand why, as you guys discuss coalitions and political parties, I was registered and found myself being a member of a party that I've never registered to. So perhaps speak to that, because as we're talking about coalitions and parties, there was that whole situation. Yeah. So red people might find themselves out they're members of coalitions of not their own doing. So what's the status of that?
Okay, that's a very relevant question. When we last discussed, we had done a pilot of Kenyans checking their membership in the political parties register. We had put our register on the e-citizen platform, because that's provided in Section 4 of the Act. We should make the register publicly available for inspection by Kenyans. So we are trying a system where Kenyans can do that. We agreed that particular time. I remember even the conversation with you that after that pilot, then we shall call together political parties who are the owners of the register, and they are the one who register members. All members belong to political parties. Registrar is only a custodian of the register. Right. We held a meeting with the Secretary General sometimes last month, end of last month, and agreed that we shall make a system still in the e-citizen platform and in our system where Kenyans can actually check their membership, but not only check but also resign from parties they do not wish to continue belonging at any particular time. And then they can join another party through the same platform. That makes it easier. One, in terms of data protection, in the meeting that we had with the Secretary General, the Data Protection Commissioner was also there. And we agreed the method in which we shall protect data and allow Kenyans to access the register, resign and join political parties of their wish, and also come together, articulate Article 38 of the Constitution, right to association. But we want also to be very categorical that it is actually not criminal to belong to a political party. We were disturbed the way Kenyans reacted, as if it's a bad thing. It's criminal.
If you're not registered, you find yourself.
Yeah, it was because they were not registered. That is why they reacted.
That they didn't do it themselves. You know, even I found myself a member. I've never.
Yeah, but I am appealing to the media also. Let's also understand it's okay for Kenyans to belong to political parties and support political parties and join political parties for membership. So it's not a call that leave political parties. But as far as the issue of merger and coalition is concerned, we also noted that when parties come into a merger, not a coalition, a merger, you know, they move from being individual parties to one political party. One of the provisions of the Act is that if you are a member of Party X and it merges with Party B and you become Party C, all the membership now come together. So what we actually noted, some of the Kenyans registered in parties that merged separately. So you register in Party X, but finally it merged. Your data now become part of Party C, which is a merging party now. And then for that reason, you may say that I am not a member of Party C, but legally you registered in Party A and Party B, but you became all of you Party C. That's why the outcry sometimes was, because it was data that was combined according to the Act, and coming all the way from when the political parties Act started operating.
And we have about a minute to go to the top of the hour. Perhaps a final question to you from me would be, you appeal to the political class and perhaps what you'd want final word to Kenyans, as we are seeing a lot's going to be happening as we count down to the general election. What is it you'd hope to see that would improve our politics and maybe transcend above just the back and forth that we largely witness from your office and where you sit?
From where I sit, I think the most significant and most important thing is issue-based politics. Yeah, we focus our issues on ideologies, we focus our issues on issues of discussions that are relevant to the citizen, and also whatever else we do, we have peaceful elections. Yeah, that no politician should incite Kenyans against each other, that every person who come out in the podium should have the interest of the country at heart, that every person is looking at the political class to see what unfolds in the coming future, and also every person, even the unborn children, are looking at the political class for protection.
Okay, thank you very much, Registrar of Political Parties and Nderitu, for being on Kivumbi 2022. Of course, Mukwana Alutalala will continue to be with the show after Kisa Wandera brings us a news update. Who else do you have, Ken, later?
We have Joshua Kipto, the Nandi County Speaker. He'll be joining us on the table later on. And of course, we have the Homa Bay Member of Parliament, Peter Opondo Kaluma, also joining us. And as you've said, Alutalala stays with us.
All right, thank you very much for being with us this far. Kivumbi 2022 is the hashtag. Akisa Wandera is up next. There are top stories, and then Akisa, Ken, and the other two gentlemen will be joining the discussion. So please do stay with Kivumbi 2022.